Alicante, Spain is one of my favorite cities to visit. It's not too big, not too small, very affordable, and is incredibly charming. Even though it's not the most well-known of cities in Spain, the Alicante province within the Valencian community of Spain is host to millions of tourists every year, and the airport is one of the fastest growing in popularity throughout Spain. In recent news, I learned that Alicante is implementing a ban on short-term rentals in the city. So today I'm going to go over the details of the ban, the impact it may have on travelers and investors, and what it means for the future of tourism in Alicante. Hi, my name is Nicole. Welcome to my channel, Travel to Money, where I share about how to travel, adventure, and have fun on the road to financial independence, especially if that road is leading you to Spain. So as we jump in, let's start by going over a brief history of tourism in Alicante. The late 19th century saw the arrival of the railway connecting Alicante to the rest of Spain and making it more accessible to travelers, particularly from Madrid. This marked the beginning of modern tourism in the city. Initially, Alicante attracted visitors seeking its mild climate and coastal location for health and leisure purposes. The mid-20th century, particularly the 1960s and 70s, witnessed a significant surge in tourism, driven by the rise of package holidays and the development of the Costa Blanca as a major tourist destination. This led to increased construction of hotels and resorts. Alicante continued to grow as a popular tourist destination, attracting both domestic and international visitors with its beaches, historical sites, and vibrant culture. The late 2000s and early 2010s saw the rise of online platforms like Airbnb and VRBO, which revolutionized the way people travel and find accommodation. Short-term rentals became increasingly popular in Alicante, offering tourists more diverse accommodation options, often at competitive prices compared to traditional hotels. I stayed in an Airbnb there less than a year ago. This also provided property owners with opportunities to generate income from their properties. However, the rapid growth of short-term rentals also led to concerns about its impact on local communities, including rising housing costs, changes in neighborhood character, and lack of regulation. Okay, so why are short-term rentals so popular with tourists in the first place? Well, they offer a bunch of advantages that traditional hotels sometimes just can't match. First off, space and flexibility. Instead of a cramped hotel room, you can often get an entire apartment or even a house. This is especially great for families or groups traveling together. You have separate bedrooms, a kitchen to cook your own meals, which can save you money, and maybe even a living room to relax in. It just feels more like a home away from home. Secondly, short-term rentals can offer a more local experience. You're staying in a real neighborhood, maybe interacting with local residents and getting a glimpse into everyday life in Alicante. It's a different vibe than staying in a tourist-heavy hotel district. You can discover local markets, shops, and restaurants that you might otherwise miss. This is one of the reasons I've loved renting Airbnbs over the years. And finally, let's talk about cost. While this isn't always the case, short-term rentals can often be more affordable than comparable hotel rooms, especially for longer stays or larger groups. Plus, having a kitchen means you can save money on dining out. It's a win-win. So it's easy to see why so many tourists have embraced short-term rentals as a great way to experience Alicante. As a matter of fact, over the new year, Alicante reached 80% occupancy of its short-term rentals, and that's not even the tourist season in Spain. Okay, so we've talked about why tourists love short-term rentals, but what's in it for the property owners? Well, there are some pretty compelling reasons why people choose to rent out their homes or apartments on platforms like Airbnb and VRBO. First and foremost, it's a great way to generate extra income. If you have a spare room, an empty apartment, or a vacation home that you're not using all the time, renting it out short-term can bring in some serious cash. In popular tourist destinations like Alicante, the demand for short-term rentals can be quite high, especially during peak season, which means a steady stream of potential income for property owners. Another big advantage is flexibility. Unlike long-term rentals with fixed leases, short-term rentals allow owners to control when their property is available. They can block off dates for their own use, for friends and family, or for maintenance and repairs. This flexibility is a huge plus for people who want to use their property part-time or who don't want to commit to a long-term tenant. And finally, in some cases, there can be tax benefits associated with short-term rentals. Depending on local regulations and tax laws, property owners may be able to deduct certain expenses related to their rental activities, such as mortgage interest, property taxes, and maintenance costs. I was not allowed to deduct any of that when I was in Spain, so you would just have to consult with an accountant. So from a property owner's perspective, short-term rentals can be a lucrative and flexible way to generate income from their property. Now, while short-term rentals offer some real advantages, it's important to acknowledge that they also have potential downsides, and these are often the reasons why cities like Alicante consider implementing restrictions or even bans. It's not all sunshine and sangria, unfortunately. One of the biggest concerns is the impact on housing affordability for locals. When a large number of properties are converted into short-term rentals, it can reduce the availability of long-term rentals, driving up prices and making it harder for residents to find affordable housing in their own city. This is a serious issue that many tourist hotspots are grappling with. Another problem can be changes in neighborhood character. When residential buildings become primarily occupied by tourists coming and going, it can disrupt the sense of community. Local businesses might start catering more to tourists than to residents, and the overall feel of the neighborhood can change. Lack of regulation and tax collection is another major issue. In some cases, short-term rentals operate in a legal gray area, which can lead to unfair competition with licensed hotels and other accommodations that are subject to stricter regulations and tax obligations. This can also mean a loss of revenue for the city. Finally, there are concerns about noise and disturbances. Tourists on vacation might not always be as considerate of their neighbors as long-term residents, leading to noise complaints and other disruptions, especially in residential areas. These are all valid concerns that cities have to consider when deciding how to regulate short-term rentals. Okay, let's get into the specifics of this short-term rental situation in Alicante. It's important to be clear about exactly what's going on. From what I've been able to gather from various news sources, Alicante City Council has implemented a temporary ban on issuing new licenses for short-term tourist lets. This means that if you didn't already have a license to rent out your property to tourists for short stays, you won't be able to get a new one for the next 2 years. Here's a breakdown of the key details. First, what type of rentals are affected? It seems this ban primarily targets entire apartments and houses that are rented out to tourists for short periods. It's less clear whether it affects renting out individual rooms within a property where the owner is present. Next, what areas of Alicante are affected? This ban applies to the city of Alicante itself. Other towns and municipalities within the Alicante province are not currently affected by this specific measure. Now, are there any exceptions? It appears that properties already holding official tourist rental licenses are exempt from this temporary ban. These are properties that have met specific requirements and are registered with the Valencian Tourism Registry. Finally, when did or will the ban go into effect? The ban has been implemented recently, with news reports indicating it went into effect this month in January of 2025. This temporary ban is set to last for 2 years. During this period, the City Council plans to review existing regulations and address the issues surrounding short-term rentals. Now, I want to emphasize that this is a developing situation and details may change. It's always a good idea to check official sources for the most up-to-date information. So, how does this ban actually impact you if you're planning a trip to Alicante? Well, there are a few key things to consider. First off, it's likely to mean fewer accommodation options, especially in the short-term rental market. If you were hoping to snag a cool apartment in the city center through Airbnb or VRBO, you might find your choices more limited. This is especially true if you're booking last minute or during peak season when demand is already high. I was an Airbnb host for a long time, and I'm not currently hosting. So Airbnb hosts remove their listings from the platform for all kinds of reasons, meaning over the next 2 years, any listings currently up that come down for any reason won't be replaced by anyone else stepping in on the scene. This reduction in supply could also lead to potential price increases in hotels and other traditional accommodations. With fewer short-term rentals available, hotels might see increased demand, allowing them to raise their prices. So if you're on a tight budget, you might need to be extra savvy with your booking strategies and look for deals or consider traveling during the shoulder seasons. Finally, this ban could lead to changes in the overall travel experience. A big part of the appeal of short-term rentals is the more local and immersive experience they offer. You get to stay in a real neighborhood, interact with locals, and experience the city from a different perspective. With fewer of these options available, the overall tourist experience in Alicante might shift slightly, becoming more centered around traditional hotel stays. It might mean less of living like a local vibe that many travelers are looking for these days. Okay, so if you're planning a trip to Alicante and we're hoping to stay in a short-term rental, don't worry, there are still plenty of options available. You just might need to adjust your search a little bit. First, let's talk about the classic options, hotels. Alicante has a wide range of hotels, from budget-friendly to luxurious 5-star resorts. You can find everything from small boutique hotels in the Old Town to large beachfront properties. This is a great option if you prefer the convenience of hotel services and amenities. Another option to consider is hostels. Hostels are a fantastic choice for budget travelers and solo adventurers. They offer affordable accommodation, often in shared dorm rooms, and they're a great way to meet other travelers from around the world. And here's a tip: consider nearby towns that aren't affected by the ban. The province of Alicante has many charming coastal towns and villages just a short drive or train ride from Alicante City. Places like El Campello, Altea, or even Benidorm, if you're looking for a livelier atmosphere, could be great alternatives. You can still easily visit Alicante City for day trips while enjoying a different atmosphere and potentially more affordable accommodation options. So even with the changes in the short-term rental market, there are still plenty of great places to stay in and around Alicante. You just might need to explore some different options and be a little more flexible with your search. Now, let's talk about the impact of this ban on the people who have been renting out their properties short-term. This is a big deal for them, and it's important to understand the financial implications. The most obvious impact is a loss of rental income. For many property owners in Alicante, short-term rentals have been a significant source of income, especially during the tourist season. This ban directly cuts off that income stream for those who don't already have the proper licenses. This could be particularly challenging based on the timing for people who were prepared to rely on this income to pay their mortgage or other expenses. This situation might also lead to changes in the local property market. With fewer properties available for short-term rentals, there could be an increase in the number of properties available for long-term rentals. This could potentially stabilize or even decrease long-term rental prices, which could be good news for local residents looking for affordable housing. Property owners who were prepared to start a short-term rental business might need to consider switching to long-term rentals, which involves finding suitable tenants and managing longer lease agreements. This might not be as lucrative as short-term rentals, but it provides a more stable income stream. Another option is selling their properties, which could lead to an increase in properties on the market. It's also worth mentioning that the City Council is using this 2-year period to review and potentially revise its regulations for tourist rentals. So it's possible that new regulations or licensing procedures will be introduced in the future, which could provide some opportunities for property owners to re-enter the short-term rental market, but with stricter guidelines. This situation in Alicante isn't happening in isolation. It's part of a much larger conversation happening in popular tourist destinations all over the world. We're seeing a growing debate about the impact of tourism, particularly the rise of short-term rentals, on local communities and housing markets. It's a complex issue with no easy answers. Think about cities like Barcelona or Amsterdam. They've been grappling with similar challenges for years. In Barcelona, for example, there have been protests by residents concerned about rising rents, overcrowding, and the loss of local business due to the influx of tourists. Amsterdam has implemented strict regulations on short-term rentals, including limiting the number of nights a property can be rented out per year. These cities, like Alicante, are trying to find a balance between the economic benefits of tourism and the well-being of their residents. This brings us to the crucial concept of sustainable tourism. It's about finding ways to manage tourism in a way that benefits the local economy without negatively impacting the environment, the local culture, or the availability of housing for residents. It's about ensuring that tourism is a positive force for everyone involved, not just for tourists and business owners. Finding this balance is key. Tourism can bring much needed revenue to a city, creating jobs and supporting local businesses, but it's also important to protect the character of neighborhoods, ensure affordable housing for residents, and manage the environmental impact of tourism. It's a delicate balancing act, And the situation in Alicante highlights the challenges that many cities are facing in trying to get it right. I'll be honest, I was a little surprised to see Alicante implementing this ban. It's not a major city like Barcelona and is implementing this ban long before other cities who see more tourists every year. But this probably means they have a proactive government rather than reactive. But then again, maybe they're already experiencing negative impacts of over-tourism, and we just don't hear about it as much because it's not a well-known city. The ability to rent some of my properties as short-term rentals literally changed my life, and I've also had some of my best travel experiences staying in Airbnbs around the world. It's one of my favorite ways to travel, especially if I'm staying in a place for a few weeks or more. But at the same time, I don't want locals anywhere to not be able to have affordable housing. It really does take some balance to bring about a situation that isn't harmful for one group or another. What do you think about the situation? Does this impact your travel or investment plans? I'd love to chat with you about it in the comments. Do me a huge favor, like this video and subscribe to join me every day where travel and adventure build financial freedom. I can't wait to see where your dreams will take you.